So for you, wonderful person, I'm just gonna call you Jay. Um, you mentioned like Incubus Succubus, and I'm seeing there is some sort of connection. But what happens is that some of the fantasies that you've had helped some people from the past. Like you've had a few male figures in the past, let's say as your lovers, as your husband, a close friend, where you say that, together forever. Like you and me, we're married, so until the death, till this part and all this stuff. And so these connections, when you make decisions to be with people, it stays with us even after we die. Because depending on certain agreements, depending how we look at things, best friends forever. Well, you kind of tie yourself up with that. You might not want it to be forever, but just a simple thing we say for fun. So same thing with someone you love. You're just like, hey, just you and me forever, and like things like that. So there are certain people who took that part in their way very seriously, like very possessively, being very dominant, like, hey, you belong to me. I'm not gonna let anyone else get you. You're mine and only mine. And there's a lot of that love. But that person feels that even though they cannot be here on Earth, like they don't want to come here, they don't like being on Earth, but they're being out there, making sure that once you get out, they can kind of get you from themselves. And there's like 2 to 3 figures, maybe more. I'm just gonna look deeper into how many. About 5. So 5 male figures specifically. They're not getting you all the same time. It's really like a roller coaster. Like depending on how you feel throughout certain periods of time, one of them might become more present to affect you, and so they're very possessive, which means they can cause issues in your life where you try to connect with people, and even if you try to get a relationship, even if you try to have some male figures in your life, like even as friends, all of a sudden they're gonna kind of be pushed back. Like they're gonna feel like they cannot get close to you, they cannot connect to you, they like you, but all of a sudden there's that hate, there's that disappointment, there's that being annoyed and anger, a lot of various emotions where this person from your past doesn't want any male figure near you. Like you belong to him. So all of a sudden no one can get you, no one can touch you. And, you can be very fun around people. You can be very bright and giving. But it's like that person from the past puts a cloak over you that has this energy of how others are going to perceive you. Not see you for who you are, but that cloak that is programmed by this other guy from your past that does not want you to be taken by anyone else. And that's where this guy can come in, and let's say you're trying to be in a relationship, and now all these people are being pushed away, they don't like you, or, before that guy interferes, you and some people get together, you're having fun. And I would even say with girls too, it's like, even girls cannot have you. Even if you have friends that are in your space, and even you have mom or grandma or someone close to you in the female section as well, they're like, hey, look, I like you, you're close, you have best friends, and one day they just flip. Because this guy comes in and like, hey, no one can have you. Even that girl, she's having too much time with you. And all of a sudden, she's gonna come in and just flips. Like, best friend flips on you, and all of a sudden, you lose her. All of a sudden she feels like you did something really bad. Or even they might have some weird dreams, feeling states, just come close to you and feel triggered and just, I can't get close to you or anything like that. So, part of it is that. Part of it is being in your space, like, on an energetical level, so throughout the night, draining you, getting you into this dream construct to where you fall asleep physically, but what happens throughout the night, whether it is rape or energy draining or other things that happen, you lose part of yourself. So you wake up and it's as if you didn't get rest. It's like you're still like, oh man, I'm feeling all drained. You might feel icky. In Lithuania, we have a saying, "Atsikėlęs ne to loviško, ne to koja iš lovos." So it's as if like you just basically get up and use the wrong foot to get out of bed, if that would be the best translation possible in English. But it's like starting the day starting the day wrong way, and everything's gonna go sideways. So you're annoyed, you're angry, you're not yourself. So it's like you're losing part of yourself, and at the same time, getting sort of defragmented, if I could say that, losing parts of yourself. So if you have this imagination, creativity, this wanting to do things, this fire within yourself, all of a sudden it's going to be taken away because these beings are draining you. So there's that part. Still like just looking if there's anything else. Another thing, it happens to everyone, one way or the other, but let's say the fantasies that you have had that have called out this Incubus Succubus thing, you haven't closed them. And it is the same way people create, like, daydream, and they create their wanted reality. And same way we're just like, wouldn't it be wonderful if? And they're gonna dream about the best world possible, their wanted scenarios, what if they the girl or the guy they like, they met with them, and what if that relationship happened? And we're gonna just spin various scenarios to please ourselves, just to wonder what if. But everything we spin and fantasize about is literally created in another parallel reality. In another world, it has happened, and that is the way things are right now. But you have no idea how many fantasies you have for actually creating people and beings out there. And where it is sexual, and any of you can just, you can have a sex with a girl or a guy and just wonder, what if that other person was here? Man, fuck yeah. Or you can just be pleasing yourself and just spin a scenario you like just because it's fun. And you're still creating that reality. And it's all fine. It is okay. Enjoy yourself. There are no limits. It's not a taboo thing. You're not bad or wrong for doing it. But a lot of people unawarely, it's like creating beings that, like us, wonder, where is my higher self? When they get in trouble, they look at you. You are the higher self. You're the creator. You're the God that created them. And you can just spin scenarios and create a bunch of beings, and you have no idea how many you have left without being unchecked. So let's say once you spin a fantasy and you please yourself, if that's where you're going, go into, okay, now I'm done, and that realm is erased. That is uncreated, and that is done. And you just finished your experience. You went from A to Z, and that was created, and now you undo it all. And so that is done. Because if you're like, that was fun, and you don't undo it or you uncreate it, that realm up to this day is still going. And if you are into sex, and you're creating various sexual scenarios, and a lot of us do, whoever is into, like, hey, I just like to please myself, and, like, whatever way you go, if people unfinish their scenarios or don't go with, okay, now I'm done and I'm gonna uncreate it all, that realm up to this day is still running. And if it's a sexual fantasy, everything that has happened will keep on happening again and again and again, and just wonder how many of these realms have you created that are still ongoing, that are still up to this day are draining your energy. And this is where people lose their libido. This is where people like, oh, I don't like feel the sexual urges anymore. I don't get a hard on anymore. I don't feel like I want to do this, because you're doing it like 20,000 times at once, and it's draining you. So it would be my personal recommendation to just go in and like, okay, that is like, that was fun. I'm just gonna uncreate it all, erase it, that's done. To not have your other aspects still used and messed with. It can be fun, it can be pleasurable, but it's gonna be story that will still keep on going again and again and again with what you create. It can be a specific time loop, and you're just stuck, you're just stuck in that place with that specific activity. And this goes for everyone. Not a specific person I'm talking to, but everyone. So yeah, and Jay, if you have those fantasies, you can just think of like what made you summon or manifest these Incubus Succubus in your space. You can just sort of like, okay, I think I get where it all started. Then you sort of like go over it and think of, using an eraser and just ending it all off, uncreating it, because that will really help. And same with, if they're still in your space, dealing with Succubus and Incubus, it's really good to find out why are you here. Because sometimes people have this deal. They feel like, oh, well, I get something and you get something. And some of us might like, okay, well, you can use my physical body and you can fuck with me, but you give me information, you give me the security, you give me the pleasure or whatever. And, it can go in lots of ways, but a lot of us are being messed with unawarely, that we say, like, we allow them to be in our space because, hey, we agree. Like, I get this, you get that, and that's the thing. When you're saying stop, your deal still goes on because you haven't canceled it out. So you would need to look at things that are happening that you might not be aware of it, or even like lots of different methods. Like same thing, putting those beings in a box, looking at where it all starts, like the whole parse party thing where you find, let's say, their name or how they make you feel, or this like Incubus Succubus in my space from your perspective, what seems to be the problem, and you just go with the questioning things. But there's a lot of ways to acknowledge their beingness and just deal with them. So there's that part. So I'm going with reading more of your email, just a little bit more, and seeing how can I help you, what can I tell, and all this stuff. I'm also picking up some astral abductions with you. Like throughout the night your physical body falls asleep, but your astral aspect is taken by the other groups. And I'm still looking if it's someone sinister or smaller. I'm seeing like Grace, but Grace are just mercenaries, so they're just doing the job, so, they can take you and sort of deliver you to whoever ordered them to do so. So I wouldn't give too much blame on them, but of course, they're playing the part, but someone bigger who's wanting you more. I'm also like getting like, as you people see a meter going. I've had some reads, like I'm looking at the visuals and everything else. The thing of 20 and back, and specifically being taken at 2 years old. So I'm just looking if that's a thing or not. So right now the meter is reading like 20 and back in the physical world. So it is quite likely you have been physically abducted and been in the 20 years of service. And oh boy, does that happen in Lithuania? Yeah, it happens everywhere. Everywhere. So I'm just a little glimpse. Yeah, so for me, I'm 20 in the back from the age of 2 to 22, and then from 12 to 32. So you've been into 20 in the back twice. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I'm just like looking into who's involved, what happened to you, what did you do, how are you involved. But it's already a thing. 20 in the back topic is massive. A lot of ways to like explain it, like by de-aging or bringing you back into a different timeline, where in the first timeline, your parents lost you forever. Their child is missing up to today, and they're still crying about it. But in their timeline, you were returned before you were taken, and just like, okay, your parents didn't even notice you were gone. It's like all of a sudden you're still there. Like they didn't even notice. Like, hey, we were asleep, she was asleep, we woke up in the morning, she's there. Like, what's the big deal? But yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm saying with you, Jay, it's like you've been, I don't know how to say, trained and grown to be used as this psychic emotional sponge. And what I'm saying is, groups that have been training you, and I will look into this. I'm just saying like glimpses of what I'm seeing. Um, It's like they teach you how to, like, let's say entities take loosh. So this negative energy people have, they're just gonna take it and eat that, get better. This is how they live. This is how they survive. This is how they can keep on going. And the same way they can use that energy for their technologies to run things instead of like using electricity or the coal or water or whatever else, they're using loosh. So same way, I'm seeing groups fucking with a lot of realms, and that energy, they're literally using you as this storage box that they're gonna fuck up like one world really bad, trigger a lot of people, and all those negative emotions will be stored in you, and you're like just a container for a lot of that bullshit from other people, like all of their emotions, like losing people, the death, the pain, the tears, the sorrow, and everything else, the grief, it grows in you to where you're a bit emotionally unstable. Like, it just overfills you. And when you get to that point, then this group is like, great, now we're just gonna take that energy and direct it to what we want. And, they can use it for weapons of mass destruction, they can use it to power up their own technologies and their civilizations, they can use it to eat. And it's literally like people here on Earth have like adrenochrome, like, okay, let's stay young. Well, for them, it's like literally, let's eat all this harsh energy to hold, like, like live longer, to do things longer and all this stuff. So, for you, Jay, literally like living as a container, like being trained to handle a lot of that, to where, they're just gonna pick one of the planets on the lower astral and they're gonna attack it. And it's like infiltrate, hijack, consolidate. They're gonna go in, they're gonna start fucking things up from the inside. It's like, your government goes bad slowly, and then, you've been living in a great country, but it all goes back to the current day of the world where, it's like, think of the Australia, mandatory vaccinations and this and that and that and that, and you're suppressed and you can't live anymore, and just, like, let's say genocide and the concentration camps. I'm just giving an example of things that can be really harsh, like hardcore, and a lot of that is happening in other worlds. Like reptilians, draconians, humans are involved in that, like in causing that, and the pain that other beings feel, like losing their loved ones, losing the world that they were living in, like the soul traps and all this stuff, like all this energy, the loosh, is being stored within you, Jay. And with that, it's just hardcore. Where, okay, later on they're gonna drain it out of you and use it somewhere else. But 20 years of living like that and coming back on Earth, gee, I wonder how you're gonna feel on Earth. Still living with all their crap. Like, you're not clean. You don't have it all out. You still have that part of, like, here. And another part is like, you're empathic, you're emotional. Emotional is, it's not a bad thing. You feel emotions, you can relate to things, you get better with connecting to things, you're an empath and all this stuff, that's good. But other people, you're just more sensitive to things. And on other worlds, that is great. But in this world, it's traumatic. It's gonna hurt you bad when they fuck with you. And so when they trigger you, your reactions, how you take it in, how you understand everything, is gonna hurt. And so for you, just overwhelming. So 20 years of experiencing, being the container box for all the negativity of other people and haven't been cleaned up properly, you come back here, that stuff stays with you. Not fully, but you live with that crap. And so a lot, I would say, there's a lot of cleaning needed. A lot of getting rid of all that stuff that is with you. So there's that. I will see if there's anything else I should or would for mention. So I'm seeing you connected with the Procyon group before coming here to Earth. Some of them are more like elven, long-haired looking people. Some of them were more like dwarven, like little, gnomes. Like lots of variations, but specifically the Procyon elves, working with technology. You're pretty good at tech, connecting it, creating things. So in this life, I don't know if you'd be into picking up the engineering, the programming, anything with technology would be a part where you might find your strong sides. But in that world is also where you have like a lot of access to information, and that's where you become, dangerous to certain groups, and they don't like you, and that's where you're being attacked. And specifically, like Brilliance, if you ever see, like, you're trying to do things in life, you put a lot of effort in, but feel like nothing has happened, nothing has changed, this is like where the Brilliant group comes in. Like, they're humanoid bird-looking beings, and depending on which dimension they are, they're gonna shapeshift, and like their form, their being is gonna change. But they're pretty much like a very good race, created an AI, trying to survive and get better, gone wrong, and the AI took over and is now like AI, cyborg bodies, like run by AI. So a lot of these beings are just bad program, and what they do is it's kind of like they put you back in time. So if you're trying to get better, you're doing shadow work, you're trying to learn things, you're trying to get better in any possible way, and you put a lot of effort and time into something, but then eventually nothing has changed, the Brilliant group has come there and pretty much like just put you back in time. Just like, hey, like nothing happened. Just go on, try again. And so this group is like interfering with you quite a bit. They're from the past. They're like pretty much like you were stopping their technology and stopping their messing with the like the whole 3D. You caught them and tried to stop them a little bit, but that's where they're like, oh, you're a bad guy, so they targeted you, and they're pretty much like up to this day trying to suppress you, make sure you don't get out of that prison cell you kind of have. So there's that. So this be just like a quick, I guess. For now, it's good enough. Like gives me plenty of insights. And yeah, that would be just a little. Hey, look what I found. So as regards Succubus Incubus, I've sort of mentioned what you can do. As regards Brilliance, this group, if any one of you have this thing in life where you feel like, you do your own shadow work, inner work, you try to get better in life, you do these various techniques where you try to remove entities, you try to get rid of this, let's say, negative thinking, or, you do the soul contract removal, whatever techniques you're using in life to get better, and then you see no results, that's pretty much where the Brilliant groups comes in. So being aware that they're in your space, like, hey, I worked and nothing has happened, you focus on that. And what you do is like, okay, well, how do I deal with them? Now that you sort of like know the idea, well, if these are the symptoms, and this is how you can sort of tell that it's a Brilliant group, or otherwise, if you can get out of body, see them, hear them, feel them, that would be great. But if the idea is enough of you that like, oh, well, what I'm experiencing sort of defines what happens when people are being messed by with Brilliance, then they just take that case and go with, okay, specifically this group. Go into the beginning of the incident where, if you can recall your past life, you just like focus on that one incident of, hey, well, I was trying to protect the beings on the Milky Way, and specifically, 3D, not just the Milky Way, like we're not that special on Earth, but, anyone who's messed by Brilliance, and you're trying to protect them on the 3D, you got in their way. And it's kind of like people playing football. Let's say, you have two teams, or let's say NBA. Lakers are playing against Celtics. And two teams fighting and just like, okay, this is a great game, this is their thing. And someone goes in the court and like fucks up the ball or starts shooting the gun. Hey, stop you all. And you're gonna ruin the game. Because when Brilliance go against beings on, let's say, 3D, this is the game of those few groups. And everyone's involved in one way. And when you get in and you try to stop them, you get in the way of groups that are playing the game. And so this is why you get targeted. And you have to go to that beginning of the incident where, okay, just imagine creating another timeline where you never shot the gun, so to speak. You never ruined the game. And you talk to these Brilliants, hey, I care about beings in the 3D. I'm trying to elevate the consciousness. I've been working with people. I've been trying to help them with their technology. And you are the group that gets in the way. On this timeline, you play your own game. on their timeline, I do my own thing. And this is where you can be diplomatic and you can offer your own ways of how you're going to deal with them. But it's all up to you. And hey, it's all up to you how you're going to deal with it. But for me, I always try to find an agreement with some beings instead of going into war, because if you start fighting, even if it's an entity, they always have backup. Not we. We don't. I mean, you might have friends and that would be great, but you can't call on people 24/7. And these entities have never-ending sources, so once you get in, it's going to be a big deal. Apart from that, what else could I say? I would look into events in your life that keep on happening. Like, how are you dealing with things? How are you taking things in? Like you mentioned those dark times you're having, like spiritually, emotionally, and everything else. I will look at repetitive themes, because knowing how you can be triggered, knowing how they are playing the game to mess with you, if you know the signs, then you can play with them differently. You're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna try not responding. It's like same way, people are sending NPCs to fuck with me, and I don't respond, and instead I focus on creating my own reality. Man, the wins I get and how they get pissed off is one sign. You can tell. And, it's a war, depends how deep you want to go. But that'll be it.